Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting of January 9th, 2023. I ask that you all join us and rise in singing of the national anthem. Thank you.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country and to our very own Tennille Towns, who is currently on a Canadian tour, for the supporting us in the singing of our national anthem. We're going to call this meeting to order, we're going to start this meeting with a proclamation for Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Just give me 1 minute. The event for the Alzheimer's awareness is later in the month, so we're going to do the proclamation today, and they will receive the proclamation at their event. I think it's on the 19th. Council is away at that time. So from the Office of the Mayor, I would like to announce that Alzheimer's Awareness Month for January 2023. Whereas Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia, causing symptoms such as cognitive decline, memory loss, and difficult performing daily activities. Whereas more than 50,000 Albertans are affected daily or indirectly by Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. Whereas the Alzheimer's Society of Alberta and Northwest Territories provides valuable information and services for those living with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, and supports research to identify the cause, a cure, and effective treatment options for this devastating condition. Whereas the City of Grande Prairie commends the Alzheimer's Society of Alberta and Northwest Territories for their commitment to improving the quality of those impacted with this disease. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of the City of Grande Prairie, Jackie Clayton, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2023 as Alzheimer's Awareness Month in the City of Grande Prairie. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4 of our agenda for today, the adoption of the previous City Council meetings. I'll recognize Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like Council to adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held December 12, 2022 as presented.
Perfect. That motion is in order. And I'll just check, Councillor Thiessen, did you have an error or an omission, or you're in the queue for next time? All right. I'll call the question. Please vote. Councillor O'Toole votes in favor. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to item 4.2, Special City Council meeting of December 16th, and I'll recognize Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council adopt the minutes of the Special City Council meeting held December 16th, 2022 as presented.
Perfect. That motion is in order. I will call the question. Please vote. Councillor O'Toole votes in favor. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to the adoption of today's agenda, Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I move that Council adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. I'm not aware of any additions to today's agenda, so I'll call the question. Please vote. Councillor O'Toole votes in favor, and that carries unanimously. Moving on to the delegation portion of our meeting. If you're you're joining us online, just so you're aware, there is an opportunity to come speak to council in person. You just need to go online, let us know. There's a really easy form to fill out. And 3 different groups let us know today they were coming. First, I wanted to recognize delegation of Francois and Marjorie Boudreault. And I would ask if you want to come forward, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I'm looking for Francis and Marjorie Boudreault. Come on up, sir. You can come sit at the table. Thank you so much for coming. I'll turn your mic is on, sir. So if you just want to pull it a little closer to you, it's and then just introduce yourself for those who might be watching online. Take about 5 minutes to explain why you're here today. Then I'll allow council an opportunity for questions if they have any. So thank you for coming, and please go ahead.
My name is Mark Boudreault. I'm in here to check into why our taxes on some property was changed without us notifying it. And this is most of why I'm here. And in the meantime, I've been charged a penalty for about a year for that property that we did not we didn't know that they had changed it. And our property is divided. There's 4 lots. The 2 of them, there's a shop on it. The other 2 are leaving idle. In the spring, we've been here since 1920. I'm sorry, about 20 years. But we have been getting the taxes on one statement, the lots and the lots that has the building on it, that's one statement. The 2 lots are together in one statement. That's how we've been paying the taxes. And all of a sudden we get one with the shop is on is okay. They divided the other 2 over there in separate taxes. Why? That's what I want to know.
Okay. So first I'll just ask you, Mr. Boudreault, have you had an opportunity to speak with anybody from our taxation department to date?
Not today.
Okay. So I can tell you nobody on council will have the details of the inner workings of taxation. However, I know that there's many capable people in our organization that will be happy to work with you to get you that answer. I will open it up to council, and just in case there's any questions, and if there is none, sir, what happens at the end of our meeting is we deal with delegation business, and I'm assuming council's recommendation would be that someone from administration will follow up with you. This won't take long because I'm sure those questions are quite easy to access for the right people. It's just, unfortunately, council isn't really privy to the inner workings of how our taxation department.
Yeah, we have been charged taxes on account of we didn't pay this because we didn't know anything about it.
Right. Okay.
And they went ahead and charged interest on every month that it wasn't paid, or every year that it wasn't paid.
Right. Okay.
And I wanted to get that money back. That money was taken from me illegally.
All right, I see Councillor Bosch has a question.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Hello, Mac. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for coming. Just a question. You used to have one statement with all the properties on it, and now you're saying it's split into 2 statements, the shop and then the other 2. And they don't have your correct address on the one that was split, or did they have your address and you just didn't get it?
They had the wrong address on the one that they changed.
It was the wrong address?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you find out in the end? Did they just go back to sending it to the one that they normally did in the past?
See, because they sent us a statement with both 2 lots separated, and we had them in one statement. And we wanted to find out why. Yeah, and we didn't know about it. Nobody let us know that they had changed this. And I don't see how they can change it without my consent.
Okay. I'm sure we'll figure it out quickly, though, for you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Councillor Bosch. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for coming in here, you two, Mr. and Mrs. Boudreault. My question, I have a couple questions for you. My first question is, what area of town is the shop and the properties located in?
What area?
Yeah,
It's on 105th Street and 96th Avenue.
5th and 96, okay. And when did you become aware that you were, I guess, in owing for property taxes and stuff on these other two properties? You said you weren't aware of it and that you just found out. When did you find out about these property tax issues?
We found out when we had this statement with the two lots separated. That's when we found out.
Okay, yeah, and so originally I'm just trying to piece this together. Originally, we got the address wrong potentially, and then we got the address right, and that's when you became aware of it, or?
We had moved. They sent the address to the location where we were, and they said they kept sending letters, and never got no answer. So what's the matter with the phone? You can phone find out where the hell we are. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right. So there's no one else in the queue with questions. So as I mentioned, Mr. Boudreault, we deal with delegation business at the end of our meeting, which we don't have a really long meeting. So you're more than welcome to stick around. However, our deputy CAO, Mr. Miller here, has made note. And if you don't stick around, my assumption is that council will make a motion to have someone follow up with you. And regardless if council doesn't, I know someone will follow up with you. So I really appreciate you coming out today, taking the time to come and see us, and I know that you will hear from someone shortly.
Yeah, we won't wait. We'll go home.
Okay.
Is that it?
For coming. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Well, my belongings. I need to come back.
All right, moving on to our second delegation for today. The Swan City Football Club is here to speak with us. I would ask if you're here from the organization, please come forward. Again, about 5 minutes to speak to council. We don't have any background information. We can assume what you're here for, but and then council will have an opportunity for questions. And as noted earlier, the delegation business is done with at the end of the meeting. So if you wanted to go ahead, your mics are on. Introduce yourselves and welcome.
All right. My name is Derek Van Tassel. I'm the current president of the Swan City Football Club. Thank you for your time. The other two speakers will introduce themselves when they're about to speak. Since we have under 5 minutes, I'll try to go through this fairly quick. Our organization was before a number of you, at least 5 of you, back in September of 2020, requesting a new facility. Since that time, we've worked with city admin, county admin, the Joint Regional Rec Committee, and other user groups. Numerous meetings have been had, including a presentation to the County Reeves back in January of 2021. We are thankful that the city did allocate $100,000 in matching funds for a capital project for us. We have been good stewards of these funds and have used them wisely to date. We've worked with the county at the city's direction on the feasibility of expanding the Crosslink facility. And in July of last year, we actually proposed to the county committing $100,000 of our club funds with the city matching funds to the county for revised architectural drawings. That was July of last year. We have not heard a decision on our proposal as of yet. We're prepared to continue doing our due diligence and working with admin for the county, the city as required, and the Joint Regional Rec Committee. We have done polls in the past. We have provided letters of support. But I would submit that the time for kicking the ball down the road needs to end. With the impending demolition of the leisure center, we're now faced with the reality of turning children and adults away from indoor soccer in our community. This is happening. There isn't enough space. It's frankly disappointing and embarrassing. Soccer is cheap. Its membership is diverse and many. We are here once again to offer an option, but it is time for you as council and your administration to come up with a solution that our region can be proud of. That solution is sadly going to be more expensive now than it would have been 2 years ago, and it's going to keep getting more expensive the longer you wait. I'll turn the presentation over to our Executive Director, David Rojas, to outline one possible solution. And when our presentation is over, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions, as I have been the club representative present for innumerable meetings with various municipalities over the last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. My name is David Rojas. I'm the current executive director of Swan City FC. The reason for me being here is to present some of the ideas that we as a club have had and discussed in the recent weeks. So the facility problem is clear. We have, at this point, run out of time. We've lost 150 players or spots from last September to January. So there's a fundamental need for a new soccer facility. We recognize and value that you're currently looking at different options, including retrofitting existing facilities. Our focus right now is to support other ideas that you may have. We also feel the need to remain proactive. I've distributed an example of a successful model that has been implemented across Canada in recent years. The example is a dome facility. It's an indoor or four-season facility. This facility will provide the space that we need and also some extra space for other user groups to use. We would also be able to host provincial events that would attract visitors to Grande Prairie that otherwise would not have a reason to come here. We understand there's plenty of ideas about facilities. However, due to its affordability and timeline to completion, we think and we believe that a dome represents our best solution. We could have a new facility if we were to agree to this project as early as November 2023. Our mission as a club is to welcome everybody who wishes to be a part of the game and the sporting community, just as we were all welcomed at some point. Thank you. I will turn it over to Kristen, who will provide a different perspective to our problem.
Hi, my name is Christiane Mizau. I am actually a nurse here in town. My husband is an internal medicine physician, and I manage a clinic of 6 internal medicine specialists. My argument that I have for you today is that we are in dire need in this town to recruit physicians. We have 17 practicing physicians as family doctors working in this city. I hope you all have one of them. We have lost our entire urology department. We have lost 3 general surgeons. We have lost our radiation oncologist. We no longer have somebody to do radiation in the brand new facility we just built. We have lost pediatricians. We have nobody that wants to stay and live here anymore in the professional community of medicine. My job is partially to recruit physicians to join our practice, and I need something to sell. People do not want to come to Grande Prairie, and I'm going to be very honest about that. All medical training is done in a city. These people have been in cities, started their family in cities, and now we are asking them to uproot that to come to Grande Prairie. The baby boomer generation, no offense to anybody in this room, is ending. And now the new workers are looking for a work-life balance. And Grande Prairie is very, very good at the work, but we do not have the life balance portion of it. This facility would allow us to host tournaments. We had a tournament this weekend at our facility. We had 150 players, roughly. This facility could offer us up to 800 players. Roughly, if they're spending $800 to $1,000 a weekend being in our town, you have almost $1 million in revenue. It's an opportunity to recruit. It's an opportunity to market this town. And it is an opportunity for us to fill a huge void that we already all have. And this is only soccer. This doesn't include lacrosse or any other sporting community that is in need. I am asking that this proposal for this indoor facility be considered very seriously. We are a family of healthcare workers, and we are shopping for a new town. We can't do it anymore. AHS isn't recruiting. It's not their job. The physicians are not employed by Alberta Health Services. We have to recruit for our own town. We need people to come here. And I cannot say it enough. I need something to show them. Let's have them come for a weekend with their kids for a tournament and see that Grande Prairie is not a walk-in clinic. Because that's how we are thought of in a city right now. That's all I have to say.
All right. right, thanks for your presentation. I have a queue of councillors with questions. Councillor Blackmore.
I have a couple questions. One is, I think that we're all aware that soccer is going to take a pretty big blow when we crush the Leisure Centre. We're aware of that. So right now, what I don't really know is how many indoor field spaces you have right now, including the city and the county. It's probably your...
The city has pitch 1 and the county has crosslink. And as of January, David spoke to the fact that there's now 150 kids that have nowhere to play. You could argue, well, there's gymnasiums, but gymnasiums are already, frankly, booked for most part, and playing soccer in gymnasiums is not ideal. So really, you're down to pitch 1, which, as we presented back in September of 2020, is past its life expectancy back then.
And that's the metal building?
Yes.
Okay.
Which I'd like to point out the club has managed to operate, I think, and build our bank account while looking after an expired facility. So,
okay.
But we are short space.
So the reality is, at this moment, you have 2 spaces in the city, 1 space in the city, 1 in the county?
We can't use the leisure center currently anymore.
Okay.
It's obviously demolished. So we have 1 in the city and we have 1 in the county. The county we will send sometimes the senior leagues out to and our competitive program. It's cost prohibitive for recreational players at this time. So it is the kids that are going to play recreational soccer that now have to wait for the outdoor season.
And the recreational deal, regional recreation, was to build more space at the county, and that's not happening, or you don't know?
There's a joint regional recreational committee that we attended a number of meetings with, as well as with South Peace Volleyball Club. We were looking at a multi-sport facility to hopefully service the needs of other user groups as well. But in July of last year, we proposed to the county, and I'm sure the city must be aware of this, that we proposed $100,000 of our funds with the city matching funds to go towards revised architectural drawings. I've followed up with the county a number of times. They have not made a decision on our proposal, which is why we said enough is enough and we had to come back to the city here. That's not to say we won't work with the county, but frankly, even revising the county facility will take years and won't be enough for the region in any event.
I have one more question. That's okay. When I look at your presentation that you've given us, it shows a dome on the current Rotary Field site. Does that mean that there would no longer be outdoor soccer in Grande Prairie?
So that presentation was from 2020 as well. It was something we had pitched to the city. There's a number of different options, but one of the problems we run into is we're volunteers. We have turnover. It's not our job to really come up with the best solution possible. You have staff to do that. But the dome idea, if we put it at Rotary, you could still have an outdoor field there as well. In the end, what would be ideal, and I know you guys will talk to your admin about this, give us some land, build us a building, and let us run it. Soccer has shown that we are one of the only organizations that's been able to run a facility, not lose money, and we probably, outside of hockey, have more funds in the bank than any other not-for-profit sporting organization.
So if we were interested in building a dome, you really don't care where it's built?
No. And I think when we presented a few years ago, the Scottish Dome at that time was $13.4 million. We gave a number of other examples. It's not cheap. We recognize that. And I apologize if I'm a little frustrated, but it's been years of meetings and little progress has been made. Notwithstanding, city admin and county admin have been great to work with. Just things move really slow.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Well, I do agree that things are moving slow, but I think one of the reasons you pointed out really early on in your comments is 2020, right? And so just as recent as December 15th, we did have a regional rec committee meeting, which in fact did talk about progress, potentially progressing this facility. But again, yes, you're right that it will take time. A dome might be easier and quicker. Has the dome idea ever been presented to Did you just say it was presented in 2020?
Yeah, we came up with a PowerPoint presentation called 2025. We brought a number of ideas, including the Scottish Dome, the Saskatchewan Rec Facility, and others. At that time, the land behind Rotary was going to be used for something else. I understand the city subsequently swapped some land and then put the Smith subdivision building up there. So, yeah, and I mean, I realize it was 2020, but we have to plan ahead. And, you know, now
That
it's
is tens
critical.
of millions of dollars, though. So that is very different than this dome that you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? So there is, of course, it does take time when you're talking that kind of finances, right? But with this dome, the land work underneath it, is that been accounted for in this presentation, or is there up and above costs that we would need to look at?
So it hasn't, but roughly it's an extra $1 million to build basically a CKC facility turf. That's what
So
it costs.
roughly about 4.5 million.
4.5 we're looking at, yes.
Okay.
And the same company that builds the dome will build the turf.
So you would probably have had conversations with many soccer clubs in Edmonton and Calgary and such.
Yes.
What's the life expectancy of a dome?
It depends on the company. The one that you have in front of you, Horizon companies, it's 20 years.
20 years.
And the Farley Group is between 15 years to 17 years.
And that's in Canadian winters versus
Yes.
the States.
Yes. So one of those domes, actually, the Horizon is the Scottish Dome in Edmonton. We go down there once a month and play tournaments there. Really good facility.
Okay, thank you for all your comments. I do, pardon? The cost of the land, yes, of course, that would have to be considered as well. I do understand the medical, physicians and staffing issues here. I do think it is more complex than building a dome, in my opinion. So I don't think that's going to drive everybody to Grande Prairie. But it certainly is a puzzle piece, so I appreciate your comments on that too. Thank you.
Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So just a couple of things. First, Christiane, we know full well the struggle of recruiting doctors. It's actually one of our priorities, and we're working a lot behind the scenes. So outside of soccer, please communicate with us because we're working to help you as well. And if we can work together, then we can hopefully rectify that. This is our current strategic plan or priorities. Right in the middle is quality of life, and you're here talking about both of those. Thank you. So for Derek, I believe Councillor Bressi in next year's budget has proposed a nice dollar amount towards something like this, and I'll let him speak to it. But it is definitely on our radar. One of the things we've also discussed is, are there any current vacant buildings in the city that would adequately fill a stopgap or something that we could possibly convert? Have you thought of anything, or does anything come to mind?
Well, I would expect you'd have to spend significant funds retrofitting one of those buildings. Canadian Tire building's got too low of a roof. And also, this shouldn't just be about soccer. You recognize all these other user groups that could benefit from this. So if you're going to retrofit something, I would hope you'd do it for all those user groups. But to me, it would seem better to bite the bullet, recognize you don't have proper space for a year or two, and then use those funds instead of retrofitting a building to build something that will work for the long term. But no, I don't think there is anything kicking around. If you look at the Crosslink facility, they have limited hours available late at night that wouldn't suit kids. There's just, we've accepted the fact that we're likely turning kids away, probably indoor of next year at a minimum. And, soccer, when you think about, we talk about inclusivity, there's no sport more ethnically diverse than soccer. And if you look at where a lot of your medical professionals come from, that's their sport. So no, the short answer to your question, I apologize, is I do not believe there's anything you can do short term to.
Sorry, I'll just add to that. I did contact realtors and drew all of the current vacancies of commercial buildings. There is nothing that we can stick a soccer pitch in as of right now. The Canadian Tire building has poles every 42 feet is the largest gap. You cannot fit a soccer pitch in that. The Norland Chrysler, Hanson Ford, not an option. Sears, not an option. So, no, at this point, no.
Well, and I appreciate you guys going through that information.
Yeah.
And again, compliments to you guys for doing what you've done so far. And I can see your frustration. So thanks for coming out.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for coming in, and the support you have behind you too is great to see. Just a question. I know I had met with David a little while back, but if there's $4.5 million to identify just to put the dome up and do that, what do you anticipate being the annual? Like, if the city were to say, fine, let's get our head around that. What do you see happening to Swan City FC to manage and operate that after that? Like, what are the operating costs going to be? Generally, capital is one thing, but there's an operating expense that comes with it. So, are we going to wreck this thing and just dispose it, like take it up and down a couple times a year, and the utility costs, all that kind of stuff? Do we have an idea of an annual cost?
I think it would all come down to which dome we decide to go for, right? There's different options that are in the presentation. The biggest option would have to be like this cottage dome. We'll keep it up year round, and just the page after your presentation, you can see all the numbers. Option 1 for different sizes, energy cost, and just for general utility cost. I think, roughly speaking, we're talking about $20,000 a month. A little bit less in the summer, but if we decided to keep it up, and it'll just be a matter of getting user groups to use it. For us, I think it's fundamental to have it in the winter. There's nothing we can do in the winter for soccer. In the summer, we'll have to kind of figure out the numbers and see if it's feasible to keep it up. These domes have the option of, put them out, taken down every 4 or 5 months. I think roughly it's $90,000, $45,000 when you put it up, $45,000 when you take it down. If we can manage to keep it busy over the summer, then our best bet would be to keep it up. Yeah.
And to further answer that question, the Scottish Centre actually doesn't lose money, but we've talked as a board here recently about if we can get land in a building, we can start fundraising right now to raise funds to allow us to have a cash flow coming in to pay for the ongoing operational costs. So raise X dollars, generate certain interest every month. It could cover any operational shortfalls on a go-forward basis.
So just a couple more questions by Mayor Clayton. Just of the options that you have, is there one that is the most desirable? Like, if we're thinking longer term, is it 1, 2, or 3? Is there one that, if we are looking at a long-term project?
If I had to pick one, would be option number 3, yes. It'll have to be a permanent dome you can keep up. Ideally, we would put it somewhere else that is not Rorty Fields, because those are used full-time in the summer. Worst case scenario, we'll put it there and figure out something else to do.
Okay, and just to refresh memory, so if we were trying to just dream scenario, we had covered the current beautiful field we have over across there at CKC. Would it work to be able to use it as a field that would do football and soccer with lines? Is there a system that works for both?
I'm not aware that the U of A, like one of the examples is the U of A dome. They actually use the Farley group. They put it up over the winter. I don't believe they're able to host minor provincial tournaments. They're able to host regular tournaments, but not provincials, just because of all the lines and the confusion that creates. But we would use it if it were to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bresley, and then I'm going to jump in the queue.
Great, thank you. No, definitely, I definitely appreciate the presentation and the other option. That is something that I've been very much hoping that we'd consider. And I know for me personally, I've spent a lot of time advocating for us to build something like this on the Avondale land. And council has put aside $1 million of money that we've already got for that Avondale land. And we did in our last budget put aside $10 million unfunded. So we haven't really put in our budget yet, but we've at least got that placeholder in. And I would just point out, in terms of the time and speed considerations, if this does end up in the Avondale land, there was nothing we could ever do to make it faster than starting construction in spring 2024 anyways. So if that is where this ends up, then there was nothing about the decision-making process that delayed it. I just think it's important to point out if that's the course we end up on. I am curious with this option. I'm trying to get a high-level estimate of what this might cost. So you've got the cost here of just the dome. There's also about $1 million to prepare the ground if we weren't putting it on top of an existing site. What about washrooms, change rooms, all of that? Would that be on in addition to this too, or would that be included in the cost you've given us today?
So that would be included in the cost.
Okay. Great, thank you.
All right, just a couple background questions. Mr. Van Tassel, you indicated that cross-link cost is cost prohibitive for players. Can you explain that to me?
So obviously competitive players pay higher fees in most sporting groups. They will play out there because I believe Crosslink is at $190 an hour?
180.
180. So the problem becomes with rec kids who pay under $200 in fees. And in fact, Grande Prairie was one of the only areas in the province to offer a free recreational program for outdoor the last 2 years. So we've done our best to try to keep fees low. And I think for this coming season, indoor fees are what for rec?
$229 for one age group, $149 for a different age group, depending on how many times a week they come.
So unfortunately, based on 190 or 180 an hour out at the county, parents seem to be willing to do the traveling. The competitive parents haven't had a problem with that. But it's not fair, I think, to ask the recreational kids to head out there. They would lose a lot of playtime.
Can you tell me what your growth looks like in the sport? How many players, I mean, COVID aside, look at a 5-year sort of scan. What are the demographics of your sport? How are you growing? Where's the mix, boys to girls? Tell me sort of those numbers.
Well, we have spreadsheets for that. Our competitive program post-COVID is kind of slowly going up again. Rec numbers have went up faster. Senior league is actually probably the most stagnant, and part of that's because if you've been on pitch one and you're over the age of 25, try running on it. So that's hurt. It's hurt recruitment there. There's also secondary issues like referees, coaches, but our numbers have started to go back up again. But part of it is it's easy in outdoor. In indoor, it's really hard to recruit when you don't have enough space. And now we know we're at least 150 members short for indoor of 2023.
So you are turning people away currently?
150 kids aren't playing.
Okay.
So.
And then can you tell me across the province, give me some comparable mid-sized cities that would have facilities such as you're suggesting. I don't mean Edmonton, I don't mean Calgary, I mean a St. Albert, an Airdrie, a Medicine Hat, those types. Who has facilities like the one you're suggesting?
Well, if we go just to Fort St. John, they have a pitch one like we do, plus they have a new futsal court that they put into their curling rink, I believe. Red Deer has a number of multi-sport facilities. I think one of them is
Red Deer has a dome, just like
Ellicott
we're
Center,
proposing.
and then a dome. I haven't been to Medicine Hat in a long time, so I'm not sure. But Red Deer would have better facilities. And then you have to remember, like, surrounding communities like Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, St. Albert, their multi-user facilities are a little larger than the East Link, which is a great facility in town. And the other thing I think we haven't talked about yet is some of these things should be designed to lose money to bring people here. So while we're proposing, we could probably run it not at a loss. I mean, these are investments you have to make to bring others to the community. But we're behind the 8 ball. We have one of the only boarded facilities left. Edmonton is converting their boarded facilities because, frankly, soccer is now moving non-boarded. We actually had a team from Ontario that came up this weekend, men's team with former Canadian futsal players and a high-level Tier 1. They came, dominated, and enjoyed the city, disappointed in the facility.
Sure. Thanks. That's all my questions. I just wanted to address, as Councillor Berg did mention, supporting the attraction and retention initiatives for healthcare professionals has been a priority of this council for a long time. I can tell you that on a regular basis, this council works with many organizations in that. And I'm truly proud of the facilities that we have in our community. To say that our community is lacking, I think that we, bar none, have more facilities per capita than any city our size in Alberta. So recreation facilities. You're saying that, people come to this community, there's not really much, there's no reason to stay or come, and I would just disagree. I think our community has excellent facilities. I can appreciate that, you, in your opinion, you're short soccer facilities, but our community has exceptional facilities. Are there needs? Yeah, we absolutely worked on a recreation and culture assessment to see what those needs are. And I can understand when you're the people that are living in that day to day, but I know this council, county council, administrations from both teams have been working very hard to find a solution. This hasn't gone to the back burner. It's still a priority, as Councillor Bosch mentioned. As recent as 2 weeks ago, there was a regional recreation committee meeting discussing this exact issue. So although it may not feel like we're moving quickly for you, I can tell you that we are still working on this issue, and it is of importance to this council. I have a few other people on the queue. Councillor Blackmore.
I just had a couple quick questions that I am curious about. I would call them fields, but Derek, I guess we call them pitches. How many pitches would you have in a Scottish dome? How much expansion to what we currently have to what you would end up having in the end?
So we're looking to build a FIFA-size field that's only used by high-level players and college players, professionals. But within the same field, we can fit an extra 4 fields, the same size as an indoor field, so we can have 8 teams playing at the same time.
Okay, and
that's what we're looking at with the county as well. Just so everybody's on the same page, the county was looking at expanding the soccer field there to be larger as well, to give more combinations. So a Scottish-sized field gives you more permutations and combinations to have more players playing at any time.
And you mentioned sharing the space with other user groups. Can you mention what some of those user groups might be?
Oh, for sure. Back in 2020, we submitted support letters from rugby, lacrosse, pickleball at the time, a number of different volleyball clubs, from the minor volleyball club, SPVC, to the mixed, to the adults. This time, I think we're waiting on a letter here for baseball, cricket.
Cricket, just showing, yeah.
So there's a lot of sports that could use a facility like this. Ultimate Frisbee we thought about. So you're able to, I think, deal with a lot of groups at once with a new facility.
And would you be able to share that space with those groups? Time commitments, land commitments, all of that?
You mean utilization of it once it's ready? Yeah, I believe so, because different groups play at different times. So when we had talked to pickleball, and I see pickleball is being used quite a bit at the Eastlink Center, but the pickleball play time is different than, say, soccer. Adult leagues can play earlier or later. So in Edmonton, one example is the men's soccer plays at 7 in the morning on Sundays. So you have to really like the sport for that. But you'd be able to fill in some gaps. And then one of the things we'd have to do better, which you'll see all the time, is late cancellations of. It's one of the problems with utilization rates. Groups will cancel last minute. But yeah, we would be able to, and there's different seasons. So when indoor soccer takes a break, rugby is starting, they will rent the pitch one at times to get ready for their outdoor season. So with proper planning, you would be able to utilize it a significant amount. Pitch one, we utilize 7 days a week.
Right now we're running 7 days a week, yes.
So at pitch one, how many different user groups use it?
So
right now,
pitch one is primarily soccer, and then some of the schools.
We have a lot of schools come in to play. We also have football when it's too cold outside. They come in. Cricket, lacrosse has now moved in since the demolition of the leisure center. They're not longer able to book the leisure. It's not optimal for, our pitch is not optimal for lacrosse to be used because of the boards are too low, but they're still gonna compromise and use it because they need a space to use. That's another thing that I think with the dome, other user groups will benefit not only by the dome, but also if we're able to move some more groups out there, we could use the indoor facility for other groups to come in and have more space available for them.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you guys for being here today. I got the buildings here, the options A, B, and C. How big a footprint would that be? Like, how many acres of land would you need if we're looking for you too?
I think it would depend on the size of the parking lot that we need to. I'm not familiar with the requirements between the size of the building and the size of the parking lot, but.
So I don't think we would speculate today. I mean, Scottish in Edmonton has a much larger footprint because they also have outdoor facilities. But I think today we're looking for the city council to make a direction to administration to more aggressively research the various options. It should be for you guys to decide what the optimal space would be, but it's, it's not going to be the 13 acres that Scottish uses, but I don't want us to commit to a size that turns out to be inaccurate. I think you guys are better resourced to do that research.
Fair enough. I had another question, but I forgot about it, so
I'll come back to you.
We'll work on it.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. My question is, in talking to some of these other clubs with domes, the issues of, let's say there was damages done to them, is it easily fixable? David, I imagine this is your wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm. It's the companies they essentially give you a guarantee, right? So it's the issues, they don't really advertise the issues that they have with them. But I don't believe that it would be, what sort of issues do you mean? Like,
Cutting it.
So I can say that I did reach out to the Scottish Soccer Club 2 years ago, and they had advised they hadn't had significant ongoing costs for repairs and maintenance. Their bigger issue was they had shacks for the washrooms that they were hoping to raise funds to actually build proper washrooms. So that was their bigger concern. They had said kind of that everything came into their operating expenses monthly of about, I want to say $25,000. But they didn't identify vandalism, which, you know, obviously I guess would have to be a concern based on where you live. But they hadn't mentioned that anything had broken down that cost significant repairs. But that was 2 years ago when I talked to them last.
Certainly. And I agree with you in regards to finding out more information, you know, between what you've done already and what our team can do here. I look forward to that.
absolutely.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just kind of coming back to currently we have one boarded pitch and the county has, I guess, 2 pitches that you can use at a time. With the current building, it's kind of getting past its shelf life as well. We're talking about leisure center today, but the current building's kind of getting past its shelf life. If a dome went up, would that, to me, it would appear that would be enough to replace both facilities at some point and have a plan moving forward?
You're talking about pitch 1?
Pitch 1?
I would think you might want to use it for some of the other user groups and potentially, but yeah, you could, it's past its life expectancy for soccer. Soccer's no longer boarded, so from a soccer perspective, it likely wouldn't be needed.
Yeah. And so as much as I agree with Mayor Clayton, I think we do have a lot of amenities in Grande Prairie. That is one thing from kids that played soccer is we are behind the times in the province when it comes to, we're boarded soccer on an old concrete floor that's not level anymore. It's not a great pitch to run on. As Derek said, for an older person, it's not very much fun. So I definitely would like to see something happen, and it would be nice to see us get something that would look long-term.
And I don't want to overstep my boundaries here, but it seems to me that something like this, the Joint Regional Rec Committee is ideally suited for. I would think you'd have to be able to get some grants from a provincial and federal level for something like this. So whether it's within the city or on the boundaries of the city, you can't tell me there's not grants available, especially with Canada hosting the World Cup in 2026. So it's something that you would think you'd want to share the cost. The whole region will benefit from it, but I recognize the difficulties in that type of sharing.
Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I think I know why Councillor O'Toole forgot his second question is because he stole my first question in regards to the footprint, and that's just how karma works sometimes. So in regards to the footprint, the biggest dome, so I'm looking at option 3, if we were to move forward with this. The footprint, the size and scale of that, would that fit on the pre-existing leisure center lands? And the reason why I'm asking this, I'll just preface it before you answer, is a lot of the expenses that the city incurs on infrastructure when we build recreation facilities is around the sidewalks, the parking lots, the lighting, and all the utilities that go with all of that. Now, in my opinion, I think it would be ideal to build over top of something that already has pre-existing amenities that we can tie into it. So a pitch this large, would it fit over the existing footprint of the leisure center?
So I believe we submitted in 2020 to City Admin a plan to, we had Helix Engineering draft some documents that showed the footprint. And originally we had looked at going across from the new high school, and it didn't quite fit there, but those drawings should have been sent to City Admin, or I can forward them on, that would be able to show you whether or not it would fit at the where the leisure center is. So it would be tight.
Yeah, and I think that would be helpful if our administration hasn't seen it, or if they don't have access to it, that they can get their hands on it. Because I think it's more palatable to build anything when we can reduce all the extra costs that are with that. Again, no guarantees, because obviously you're here today asking us for money, and we got 9 people here that got to determine it. Administration's got to build a plan around it. But yeah, the cheaper, then less work that we have to put in, the easier things get done. So that's why I asked. But yeah, if you have that to share and administration doesn't have it, I'd be sharing it right away. Thank you.
Councillor O'Toole, I'm assuming you remembered.
I did. So the 3 options we have here, Is there an estimated time that when construction starts to the time gameplay can take place? Is that
4 months.
4 months?
Yes. It's a quick process.
That's assuming you get.
That's assuming everything is approved and they get the green light.
And no supply chain issues, etc.
So we're realistically not looking at indoor of 2023. We're probably, in an ideal world, it would be early 2024, end of the indoor season, but probably more likely, if you want to do it right, September of 2024.
Okay. So is this product in North America or is it over in Europe?
The Farley Group, this is a Canadian company. They don't build a size as big as the Terra option. The size for the Terra option would be an American group. I've been in contact with them and they say that in order to have it ready by November, they'll have to get the green light by the end of this month, essentially.
Thank you very much.
I just had a last question, and no one else is in the queue. But just to wrap it up, Mr. Van Tassel, you mentioned about the $180 rental at the Crosslink versus your current. What are you charging hourly currently based on the facility to operate your facility?
So pitch one for generally used for the public is $120 an hour. We have different deals for schools and different times of the day. So it'll be about $50 for schools. The comp and PWA are our most common user groups. The Academy, Celtic Academy.
And what would your leagues pay? Like, what do you cost out to your leagues?
We said we have a base rate of $100, $100 an hour.
Because you have no debt on the building. You actually didn't ever have debt on the building. The building was given to you, so it's all revenue and your basic, yeah.
That's right.
So possibly not really a fair market evaluation when you don't have any debt. That's okay. So anyways, I want to thank you for coming today. I don't see anyone else in the queue.
Sorry, may I just say one more thing?
Sure.
I feel that there may have been a bit of a misunderstanding here. I have been in Grande Prairie since 2011. I am aware of how much Grande Prairie has to offer. I am not trying to diminish any of the work that has been done in this city. What I was trying to get at is that when I am advertising to somebody who has been in Calgary, Vancouver, or Edmonton, they're comparing us to those cities, and that's a very difficult argument. I am not trying to say that Grande Prairie does not have incredible resources. That is by no means my opinion. I'm here to advocate for this city as well. I want to stay here, and I want my family to stay here. I have 2 young kids in soccer. I have 2 young kids doing multiple sports in this town. We would like to keep it that way.
Great. Thanks for that. So again, thank you for coming today. As I mentioned earlier, delegation business is dealt with at the end of our meeting. You're more than welcome to stick around, and if not, someone will follow up with you. And again, I thank you for your time today.
Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Absolutely.
For listening.
Just gotta. We need to leave. Just give us 1 second. Councillor Berg needs to step out. So, hey, are you coming back? You're good. Okay. Okay, so what we're just discussing having a sidebar here as council has an obligation, a previous commitment to participate in a ribbon cutting of the educational wing at the regional hospital. It's scheduled to start at 4:15. I'm just going to see if there's anyone here who's here from the next delegation from Circle K.
We're here online, actually.
So since you're online, I really apologize to ask this, but can I ask that we join back with you after we go to the ribbon cutting at the hospital? If that's, is that too much of an inconvenience, or would that be okay?
We can make that work.
Okay, I appreciate your flexibility on that. So council, we're going to do an adjournment right now. We will be back. We will start again here at 5 o'clock for those who are watching and who will be coming back. So I thank everyone for coming today, and we'll see you back here at 5 o'clock. And welcome back to the City Council meeting of January 9th, 2023. Thank you for your patience as we had a recess there. We had the pleasure of going over to the regional hospital and participate in the official ceremony and ribbon cutting of the new educational wing at the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital. So thank you for your patience in allowing us to have that opportunity to step out. If you're just catching up with where we are on item 6.3. We're under delegations still. We do have a delegation here from Circle K today. They let us know ahead of time that they would like to come. I understand they are online. So I'm going to ask if you could turn your cameras on, that'd be great. 5 minutes to present to council, and following that will be an opportunity for council to ask the presenters questions. And then, as I mentioned with the other delegations, our delegation business happens at the end, where council will actually have an opportunity to ask administration any questions that may come from the conversation that you're going to present now. So thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Thank you for your patience, and I'll turn it over to you. And if you could introduce yourself for those who may be watching, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much for your time. My name is Tony Kolowowski. I'm with Circle K, the convenience store company. I'm the real estate development manager for Western Canada and Alaska. And the reason why we're here today is to help support the agenda item 7.1. We were potentially looking at adding another convenience store, car wash type service to the city of Grande Prairie. And through our kind of work with the city, an item came up in regards to possibly a road expansion. So basically with that, what we were looking at doing is just working with everybody there to make sure that we adhered to possible expansions in the future if we were looking to proceed with this development. Today I also do have a project manager, Stephen Ball, with me from GHD, and then as well Adam Letendre from GHD as well, that both prepared the traffic study and some of the information there. So I'll turn it over to them to do the introduction. Stephen?
Thanks, Tony. I'm Stephen Ball. I'm an engineer here at GHD Limited. I've been hired by Circle K to help with the initial development of a future Circle K convenience store, car wash and gas bar and card lock at the southeast corner of 100th Street and 132nd Ave. So in the development process, we were made aware of an existing long-term functional study and the future orientation or possible orientation and configuration of the 100th Street and 132nd Ave intersection, and also the potential future closing of the north end of the 100th Street service road at 132nd Avenue. These changes would be located along the western and northern boundaries of the future Circle K site, which was the former Windsor Ford automobile dealership. To improve future long-term access to the site, should this intersection be reconfigured, my team here at GHD prepared a functional study amendment report dated December 21st, 2022, which has been submitted to council and to the city engineering department as an amendment to the 2012 and the 2020 studies that were already adopted for that intersection. The GHD report is attached under agenda item 7.1, as Tony already mentioned. The two primary changes that we assessed here at GHD on behalf of Circle K were to add a mid-block right-out from the 100th Street service road onto northbound 100th Street next to what has already been proposed, the right-in that was already included in the future long-term plan, as well to add a right-in from 132nd Ave at the alley east of the future Circle K property, where a right-out was already included in the future long-term plan. So figure 3 in the report shows the revised future long-term configuration of the 100th Street service road and site accesses. Other lesser changes were also provided in our report that were there to address concerns related to these two primary changes. And these recommendations are all presented on page 5 of the report. So Circle K and GHD, we're here to support the adoption of this report to be presented under item 7.1 and to answer any questions that council may have now or if requested when item 7.1 is discussed or further on. We're here to answer any questions that you may have with regards to these proposed changes and our traffic study report.
All right. Thank you for that. And Mr. Latondre, did you have anything to add, or just before I move on to council questions?
Nope, nothing to add at this time. I'm also with GHG supporting Stephen.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Appreciate your presentation. I'll recognize Councillor Blackmore in the queue.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Although I know we're going to get a report from our administration in a few minutes regarding this in a lot more detail, I had one question when I looked at the maps that you had provided us, and that was, will the alley running north and south on the east side of the property be sufficiently wide enough for what you're doing, or will it need some widening? And if it does need widening, is that land going to come from the land you're looking at purchasing, or would there need to be another option?
Yeah, we don't, it'll be wide enough. There'll be restrictions on the sizes of vehicles that can go in that on the alley. It won't be large vehicles going in that particular alley.
Okay, I think I thought that some of your large truck traffic coming into the cardlock would be coming down there, but that is clearly not the case from what you just said. So I think I misunderstood that. That's
right.
Fine.
Yeah, that's correct. The truck traffic going into the cardlock won't be able to get in going down the alley. So and there's actually going to be a truck prohibited sign as well erected, just to make sure that it's clear that trucks aren't to go down that alley.
Do you feel that this is going to be isolating you from southbound traffic?
Right now, you mean southbound traffic on 100th Street?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. This won't make any real significant difference to being able to have clients coming into the site. So we're already, we've already established the traffic routes coming in from southbound on 100th Street. This is mainly just because of the closing off that northbound service road on the side.
Okay, thanks. That's all the questions I have.
Councillor Bressy.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you being here. Could you just clarify something on page 5 of the report where there's the recommendations? There's one that says move the bulb out north and connect to the northernmost site driveway. I couldn't figure out what bulb out is being referred to here.
Certainly, yeah. So in the existing functional study, there's a bulb that was shown where the right-in is mid-block. And that bulb, as per discussions with the city, we moved it further north to be aligned with one of the exits and accesses to the site.
I got you. So that's not an existing bulb out. That's a conceptual bulb out.
Correct. It's a conceptual, yeah, and it's to allow traffic and to go because it's still going to be city property. So we need a bulb out there for the for vehicles.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Blackmore, are you still in the queue, or is that just old? Nope, that's okay. All right, gentlemen, I don't see anyone else in the queue with questions, so I appreciate your time today. As you know, our reports are following this, and then at the end, we deal with any delegation business that there may be arising. So thank you for joining us this evening, and if you want to continue listening, great. I just ask that you turn your cameras off, and we'll go on with our regular business.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we aren't having a recess. We already had it. And we're moving on to reports. 8.1, 132nd Avenue Functional Study. And I am going to just move my items. I'm going to defer to Ms. Donnelly for introduction.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'm here to just bring forward this report, and the delegation actually hit a lot of my points already. They are interested in developing that parcel, 132nd Ave, 100th Street intersection on that east side. It is the old Ford site. And as everyone here knows, 132nd Ave and 100th Street are arterial roads that convey a very high volume of traffic. And the city did complete a functional study that identified long-term plan for future modifications to reduce conflict points, enhance safety, and improve capacity. So what's been brought forward is recommendations that would amend that. And really, there's only two kind of noted changes to it. One is that right in at that back lane off of 132nd Avenue, and then the right out onto 100th. And administration is recommending that council adopt the attached GHD functional study amendment dated December 21st, 2022 to the 132nd Ave functional study and supplement report.
All right. Thank you for that introduction. Questions for administration, Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. I'm just kind of confused by this process. I don't think I've ever seen a functional planning study like this come to council, and it's way more technical than I think usually we deal with. I'm just kind of curious, why is this coming to council instead of being able to be done at an administrative level?
Ms. Donnelly?
Through the chair, this did get a little bit more detailed because of the site that they're looking at, but the functional study, it was a large plan. It was adopted by council, and when there's an amendment to a document that's adopted from council, it needs to come back to council. If this was not something that was done at a council level, if it was just a traffic impact analysis that we handled administratively, you're correct. We wouldn't normally bring it forward, but we do have a document. And the existing document, if you go to our website and look at it, there's already two pieces to it. So this is going to end up being a third piece to it. So there's a number of amendments, and this is really a long-term plan. I think it's really useful for people looking to develop in the area to look at the long-term plan and have an idea how it impacts them and then make decisions based on it.
Sure, I'm just going to add something too for Councillor Bressie. This was a fairly significant engagement that council was involved with. The Chamber of Commerce presented. There was a fairly lengthy discussion on this piece, and so as Ms. Donnelly mentioned, council was quite engaged in this one.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Do we have a similar process and similar plans for a lot of other pieces of property, a lot of other roads in town, or is this a really unique one in our processes?
Ms. Donnelly?
Through the chair, no, we do have a number of these. We have one for 92nd Street. We have one for 116th Street. We have one for, there's a lot of them that do exist. They are high level and conceptual. So we have a transportation master plan. They're a step down from that, and they do start looking at like land that might be required. So they're not, the detailed engineering final, but they are really useful for landowners to take a look at. And there are a number of them on the website.
Great. And I guess just my comment on it, I was thinking over the weekend of making a motion, but I don't think I will make a motion around this. But just my comment is this functional study is it's way more in depth than I think council should be getting into and needs to be getting into. And the concern with that is, honestly, I think I spent a couple hours trying to understand something I didn't have to understand over the weekend, is brutally honest. But also when you've got members of the public or a developer needs to come to council for something, there's an expense to that in terms of time and in terms of real money for that. And I'm concerned about things like this coming to council. So I just encourage administration. I respect that this had to come because it was council approved. But if we've got more of these technical documents sitting around, I'd encourage administration to look at, is there a process we could take to kind of uncouncil approve these so that you folks have the ability to make changes like this in the future without coming to us is just some general comments, but I don't know enough to know if that's a good idea or not, but just some musings that I thought I'd share.
Thanks for that. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I just have a quick question of clarity for me. I understand the right in, right out thing, but retaining the portion of service road, why is that even an issue? That's not changing, is it?
Ms. Donnelly?
Through the chair, not really. I guess I think that is getting into the details of the future and what happens as far as land acquisitions and swapping or not swapping. The city typically, when something goes to one property and kind of dead ends, it becomes a driveway, whether that driveway is on public land or private land. These are really details that need to be worked out in the future. But I think the intent by the applicant is they wanted to assure that this wouldn't just disappear, and they still wanted to have the connection, which is, I think, perfectly fine and being shown in this level in the document in this way, because there will be a time when someone needs to have that deeper conversation of what gets actually built. But it exists today, and it's fine to continue. It's the same, really. I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
My question, Ms. Donnelly, is I'm wondering how things roll out in the future, because the 132nd Avenue functional study, not the amendment, but the functional study itself, is to redesign that intersection sometime in the future, 10 years, 15 years, whatever. And yet the potential purchaser of that land is looking at making those changes that access his land now. So in, like, how does that, is there going to be a change to the intersection that might be negative because we haven't done the long-term part yet? Do you know what I'm asking?
Ms. Donnelly?
Through the chair, the applicant's not proposing to actually construct or build any of this. They just want some reassurance that when the time comes and we do start making the improvements in the long term to this intersection, that the city of Grande Prairie will be retaining the right-in, right-out that exists currently from that lane onto 132nd Avenue. And they are wanting to kind of have assurance that when we do end up having to close the service road off, that it will be more than just a right-in, which the current plan just shows a right-in, and they would like a right-out as well. So they're just looking for some assurance that we will look to provide a higher level of access. It's not directly onto their land. The improvements in the long-term plan are to the public service road and to a public lane.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So nobody's looking to go out and build these changes as part of their development. This is for the future. So as growth occurs on that end of town, and as the traffic flows increase, and if there's a warrant to go out and do improvements at this intersection for some reason, then these are the types of improvements that this owner wants us to look at. If we had a plan at this level, because it is high level, and we were looking to actually move ahead and do improvements, we would always look for opportunities to maintain a high level of access and provide additional access to them. So we might have even done these things without it being in the plan. I think that this applicant just wants some reassurance on these two items, and that's why they've brought it forward at this time versus waiting that 20 years or however long it is.
Okay, I don't know if that was clear in the report that we're looking a long ways down the road. And certainly I don't think it would be the position of any council or administration to landlock a business. So, yeah, thanks.
All right. Well, I see no one else in the queue, so I will look to council to see if there's any business arising. Councillor Ressi. If you're not ready, that's fine. I thought I saw you going for it.
No, I got it right here. I would move that Council adopt the attached GHD functional study amendment dated December 21st, 2022 to the 131st Avenue Functional Study and Supplementary Report. And just speak to it. I think everything here was really common sense. I think as Councillor Blackmore said, we certainly don't want to landlock a business. Allowing as much access as practical is advantageous to the business. It's also advantageous to our residents and our visitors who need to access the services that will be here. So I hope that Council will carry this motion.
And I'm not sure if you did say 131st, but I know you meant 132nd, so I just want
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the motion is as indicated in the report. Any comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Thanks for that catch, Mr. Miller. Moving on to item 8.2. It's 8.2 in mine. But it's point 2, and it's the transfer of title in the Grande Prairie Youth Shelter Society. And I'll look to Mr. Johnson when you're ready for presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm here to present the Grande Prairie Youth Emergency Shelter Society transfer of title. At the September 21st, 2021 council meeting, council made the motion that's shown on the screen. I won't read it word for word. After that, there was a subsequent request by the Grande Prairie Residential Society for a land title transfer for the Margaret Edson Manor property, which is the subject property. The subject property that was subject to a subdivision following that motion. We subdivided the property that the Margaret Edson Manor is located on and used a portion of the adjacent road right-of-way. That's shown on the screen above, or screen there. The property outlined in yellow is the subject of this report. And on June 13th, 2022, Council approved the development permit for construction of the Grande Prairie Youth Emergency Shelter, which is commonly referred to as the Sunrise House. The site plan that was approved is shown on the screen with the new property lines outlined. Again, yellow is the property we're talking about here. As far as financial implications, transfer of the title of the subject property would be relinquish the land asset in the amount of approximately $485,000. And it's recommended that council designate the property as marketable and approve disposition by way of title of transfer to the Grande Prairie Youth Emergency Shelter Society. And I'm open to any questions council may have.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. Questions from council? Seeing none. Looking for business arising. Councillor Thiessen.
It was a race there. Councillor Blackmore reached for her button at the same time as me, but I would move that council designate Lot 8, Block 3, Plan 2221464 as marketable and approve disposition by way of transfer to the Grande Prairie Youth Emergency Shelter Society. Speaking to this motion, I'd just like to say this is something that we've entertained for a very long time. We've had a few committee meetings, a couple council presentations, and I think council's pretty much up to speed. I hope that this goes through smoothly. I think we all should support it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. Thank you for that. Moving on to item 8.3. As everyone knows, with council appointments, sometimes there needs to be some changes, and I'm looking for council to approve the change as mentioned. Just going to have Councillor Berg represent us on the Peace Library system going forward. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yes, with especially a new councillor on board, there's always changes, right? So happy to have you, Wade, but now you're making us work. I move that council remove the appointment of Councillor O'Connor and appoint Councillor Berg to the Peace Library System Board.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So just a bit of a housekeeping. I see no comments or questions. I'll call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. There is no committee business tonight, as we didn't have a standing committee since our last council meeting. Moving on to correspondence. Item 10.1, as you will see, there's correspondence in your package from Mr. Mike Hussey, the board chairperson for a representative from our council, a non-voting member, to sit on their committee for the 2024 Alberta Winter Games. I'm going to suggest at this time that I'll be the representative, and in the next few months, we will look to get another councillor in there. So I'm just looking for some business arising, potential motion. Councillor Blackmore.
I would move that council appoint Mayor Clayton to the board of directors of the 2024 Alberta Winter Games as a non-voting member.
The motion is in order. Seeing no comments or questions, please vote. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to our delegation business. First, we had Mr. and Mrs. Boudreault, who are here regarding a taxation issue, looking for any business arising from that. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that administration investigate what happened with the tax you have an update already?
So, sorry. Just in case there's questions for administration, I'll just assume there is. And I think Ms. Whiteway has some information that may be valuable before we have business arising. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So Mr. and Mrs. Boudreault did meet with the Director of Tax and Assessment after their presentation, and he was able to review all the information with them and ensure their appropriate understanding, and everything's been addressed.
All right. Perfect. All right. Moving on, I don't see a need for a motion to receive their presentation for information, so we'll move on to item 11.2, Swan City Football Club. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would just like to make a motion that we direct administration to bring back a report for land that would fit the dome. And I guess we have city land within our capacity that could potentially fit the dome. I'm wondering if we can start the process of identifying at least the land with this motion and going from there, and it'll come back to council for another discussion. I just would like to see us move something forward with this tonight and showing the Swan City Soccer Club that we're actually trying to move forward. We all are working forward. I got the feeling from the people speaking that they don't realize as much work is going on as it is going on. I can appreciate that. But I think this would just show them that we're actually trying to identify land for potential space for their dome.
So just some clarification on your motion, Councillor Plott. Is your intent, what option as presented? Are you looking for?
I guess so. Sorry, yeah, thanks for clarification. I would say option 3, because that's what they had identified. It's the biggest option, and that way we know whether any of the other options would still fit within that space.
And then to include parking based on what expectations?
I guess I would look to administration to kind of determine some of that within that report. They referenced another site, but I guess without knowing exact site, I'd just like to see something move forward. So yeah, if administration has some word tweaking there, I'd be happy to take that on what we could do with the motion for that.
So the motion, I think, is fine as is. I'll ask administration if they need any, have any suggestions in regards to edits to the motion, but I'll just recognize Councillor Bressie and others in the queue following this based for questions on the motion. Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely want to take action and get going on this. I'm worried that I'm wondering if we should get a bit more specific with this motion. And specifically a motion that I wonder if we should be making is direct administration. I don't think we need to get a report saying what are the possible land things here, because I think the two that are pretty obvious to me are we've got some land in Smith, we've got some land in Avondale that would work. information that would be useful to me, and maybe administration would do this in this motion anyway, so maybe it doesn't need any changing. But I know what I want is, from administration's perspective, if council wants to move forward with this and designate land for this project, what from administration's perspective are the different considerations, the pros and cons of Smith versus Avondale? That's the kind of information I'd want in a report.
Okay. I'll leave that for a second. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I'm similar to Councillor Bressie, but I can see where Councillor Platt is going with this as far as like looking at the different land designations. I think there's obviously probably one or two, but even when we're talking Smith lands back in the day, we're also talking about Riverstone and that area there too. There's a lot of open space land there and extra development that's going to go, and it just seemed like an easier thing to do with Smith at the time, and that's how the vote went. So I think there are a potential suite of available lands inside the city that maybe aren't being utilized as best as we could, and I think our administration has that information at their hands, and we can continue this discussion further. My preference is, based on my line of questioning, you know, if we can build something over top of the old footprint of the old leisure center, then that might be something if we're going to move forward with this project. Again, there's still lots of discussion and debate and funding to discuss, but I'm comfortable with the land and the motion as it is. I'd also like to be specific, but hey, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And, you know, maybe our best intentions are to put it here or put it there, but administration may have their eyes on a better prize for the whole of the community. So I'll support this motion. Thank you.
Just a question for administration before we continue on the discussion or debate on this. Mr. Glavin, can you remind me the piece of land that's adjacent to the Roy Bickle School, what's the status on that land?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. That land has been tentatively allocated for a future French school.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I just want to bring to the table the fact that we have, as the City of Grande Prairie, been on the Grande Prairie Regional Recreation Committee. And in saying that, we are already involved with the county and the other municipalities about talking about a expansion for the county sportplex for these very reasons. And so we've already put a little bit of money into the study and such, but I think we need to be cognizant that we don't throw one idea potentially away when we've already been working on another. That we have to be cohesive when we talk about these different plans. So perhaps a dome is a great idea, and I'm not discounting that plan at all, but I think that it has to work in unison with what we've been doing for the last couple of years. I don't want to throw away that work, and I don't want our neighbors to feel that we're just, willy-nilly and change our minds. I think we have to be able to work with our nearby communities as well. So just caution or collaboration, or just a thought process that it isn't only one aspect that we're looking at here, so that we can come to, idea that maybe works for all of us. Perhaps this might be the idea and saves us all a whole lot of money, but I think that communication has to be there.
I'm just going to jump in the queue ahead of you, Mr. O'Connor. I will support the motion, because to me, this isn't saying we're going to do it. This is saying what's available. I also think that it would be valuable for council to direct me informally or formally to have a conversation with the elected leaders of the partners on the Grande Prairie Regional Rec Committee to let them know that we're looking at land. If that conversation leads to further things, my opinion would be the next step is to regional rec, not for this council to have a discussion on whether or not a dome makes sense. I won't support future recreation facilities without them going through the Grande Prairie Regional Rec. The process has been established, the conversations are there for a reason, and I think that that input and that filter is extremely important. So let's see what lands there. Then let's go to the regional rec, and then let's figure what the options are. and happy to have an informal discussion with the elected leaders to give them a heads up so they're not reading in the media, oh yeah, the city's looking to build a dome in the land because soccer came and said we need a dome. That's not the intent today. So I will support it for those reasons. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I also will support this motion, and I think we don't need to complicate it, but we need to let's identify where the property is and then come back from there. We got to look at the infrastructure and all that stuff that comes along with it. So I think the motion as it reads, I will support this motion.
Councillor Plott, I will come to you in a minute to close, but first, Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you. I think I know which way the wind's blowing, and that's okay, but I'm going to be the contrarian, and I'm going to be voting no to this motion. And the reason for that is I do think that we've been talking about this for years and years and years. And for me, this seems like another motion to ask for a report that'll come back in a few months and then start another process. It'll take a few months, And for me personally, I'm always open to having my mind changed. But for me personally, I think that we should be taking steps to replace indoor infrastructure on the Avondale site. And for me, I would prefer us direct administration start working towards a specific site and having conversations about a specific site, not an open-ended motion that is having us still considering multiple sites. And so I can respect why this motion would pass, but I'm a no because I want to take bolder and quicker and more decisive action, not because I'm opposed to working with soccer.
I will come back to you, Councillor Plott. Mr. Lemieux, can you tell me, would it be appropriate, or I'm assuming it's you or Mr. Glavin, maybe with land, could this come back to the next standing committee? Is that enough time? I mean, there's only so much land that it would work on. Mr. Glavin?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. To bring something back to the next committee following next week is doable. Like you say, there's only a select few sites that something like this will fit on in the city that are currently serviced. We can also bring forward potentially some unserviced sites. I'm not sure there's much out there, but no, it wouldn't take an immense amount of work so long as we didn't need to provide detailed costing on an unserviced site or, getting too detailed of information, but just sites, that can be done pretty quickly.
So based on that, Councillor Plott, would you be open to a friendly amendment that indicates to the next appropriate standing committee? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So the date on that one will be the 7th and 14th, 31st of to the October 30 January. Wow, it's like Halloween in my head. Just gave you a half a year. You got it, Mr. Glavin? To the January 31st Standing Committee. Thank you. Anyone else with comments or questions on this? If not, Councillor Plott to close.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I can appreciate Councillor Bressie's concerns, and I'm sure that's going to be one of them. My concern with that site is, again, and the reason I want to make this motion is, as much as we've been working with the Joint Rec Committee, at some point, I think it's incumbent on us as a city to start looking at what we're going to do in case it doesn't work out with the Joint Rec Committee. And we don't even own all the land in that location. I don't know. We still have to figure out, does the comp or the school district want to sell us the land, or they want to work with us, from my understanding. So I don't want to stale us to think it's got to be location. That's why I said find locations. Regarding the Joint Rec Committee, with all due respect, I think it's great that we continue that process. But Swan City Soccer, nail on the head, they've been going through this for 2 years. And so from their world, it looks like we're just waiting and we're deflecting. And even though that's not what's happening, it just looks like a bureaucratic process. And we haven't done anything to show them we're going to try to do something within the city limits at this point that I'm aware of. It's all been going through the Joint Rec, which I'm fine with. But maybe the Joint Rec, the conversation in the back is the other way is, we think this is the best location. Are you interested in supporting us putting it in the side of the city? The conversations have all run right now being, we're expanding the crossing center. That may or may not work. So we need to start getting our ducks in a row of where we're going to put it inside the city at some point in case that doesn't work. And so this isn't to undermine the Joint Rec Committee. This is to also do what's best for our citizens at some point. And the Joint Rec Committee might not be the venue that works in the long run, as much as I'd love it to work. So I hope you support the motion. We're just trying to find locations within the city, which isn't within our control. And hopefully it goes through the Joint Rec Committee in a timely fashion to move forward.
All right, so that motion is in your e-scribe. See, that was a close, so I'll call the question. Please vote. And that carries 6-1. Moving on to item. Sorry, Councillor Bressie, missed that. Go for it.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm going to make a follow-up motion, and it is a direct the mayor one. So, Mayor Clayton, very open to feedback and amending the motion or even withdrawing it. But for me, it's like I said, I'll be pushing hard for this to happen on the Avondale site, and I think that'll be something. Whether it's the one council supports or not, I'm sure it will be one that council seriously considers. And that's a complicated site because we're not the landowners of all of the land there. And we did do a lot of work with the school board about potential future uses of this site, but that was a different school board than we have now, and we haven't talked to the current school board with it. And if we do end up wanting to put something there, I think that we need to get those conversations with the school board going. And so I'd move that council direct the mayor to consult with the school board about future uses of the Avondale site. And just speak to that, I'm being pretty open on that. That could be a conversation between the mayor and the chair. That could be a conversation between council and the school board. That could be the administrative level. I really am leaving a lot of latitude to the mayor to figure out how to do that. But I just think it's incumbent on us to reopen this conversation with the school board so that that's not another process we need to wait on if council wants to move forward on that land.
Perfect. That motion is in order. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton, and thank you, Councillor Bressie, for bringing this up. I don't disagree with you. I think Avondale site is probably the best site. And I'm looking at two guys sitting side by side who were right on the ground floor of that joint committee with the school boards trying to determine what we are going to do with that site. And I think that site, to me at least, represents a good in-between, at least, between county users of the sportsplex and, city users of recreation facilities. It's easy to get to from Wembley, Beaver Lodge, and all other areas. And for me, unless there's something that really jumps out on this land report that we're going to get, then my eggs are still in the basket of the Avondale site. So I appreciate that you're tenacious enough to consider this and also thoughtful enough to bring in the school boards for that discussion and have the mayor at least introduce it with them, because they were also on the ground floor, they also own the land, and I think this is just a responsible motion. So thank you.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I also will support it. I appreciate it because, I think this starts the conversations that need to be happening if we actually want to see something built in this term. So I appreciate you ticking this box as well, because it isn't our land, and so it would be nice to get some kind of approval or some kind of joint approval if that's the direction we're going to take. So I appreciate the motion.
Just going to jump in the queue here. I think obviously this motion is in order. I still think that I will have those conversations with the elected leaders in regards to this. In my opinion, all future recreation complex need to be consideration for regional funding, regional management, regional grant applications, whatever that is. And I feel that possibly this conversation is better had than just with the mayor, but with all elected leaders in the school board. Because in my opinion, it's not only the city's responsibility to house recreation facilities. So I'll leave that to you, Councillor Bressie, if you'd like to amend it, that it's myself as well as the other elected leaders to meet. Otherwise, I'll leave it at that. Councillor Bressie?
Yeah, and happy to reword the motion if you got specific wording on it, but kind of how I'm interpreting this motion as I'm making it is really what my intention with this is directing the mayor, hey, we think consultation needs to happen and we trust you to figure out what that looks like. So if that's bringing our council to the school board, great. It's just really saying, hey, mayor, we want to make sure this happens.
Perfect. So you'll give me the latitude to. All right. Seeing no further comments or questions on the motion, I'll call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to item 11.3, the delegation from Circle K. I think that presentation was dealt with in other business. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, I'm not sure if a motion is required, but I would just move to receive for information.
Perfect. The motion's in order. See no one in the queue. I'll call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Moving on, there are no notices of motion tonight. We have dealt with our delegation business. There was no public hearings. We are moving on to council member reports. And I know it's been a while, but let's be mindful of the fact that not everybody wants to hear what you ate for Christmas dinner or what you got from Santa. But I'll start with Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I guess we had council break for the most part for 2 weeks, so not lots to report other than did have a lot of fun. I do want to make one announcement, though, and some of you may have seen it, but as of January 1, I'm no longer a owner of Unique Homes, so I guess they called me retired, is what my ex-partner said when they wrote me the check to get rid of me. But it was an interesting last few weeks of emotional roller coaster of, it was kind of my baby. It's been 18 years I've had that company, and but it's a nice feeling to go to be done with it and to know it's in the good hands with the guys that have taken me out and that are going to look at running for hopefully another 18 or 20 years or whatever they have in them. So that was my biggest announcement, I guess, over the holiday season, other than family and friends.
All right, thanks for that. Councillor Thiessen.
Ooh, you went all the way across. Normally you go around. I'll take it. Yeah, I didn't do much over the Christmas holidays. In fact, it was quite nice to just put my feet up and enjoy some family time. My son was away for about 2.5 weeks prior to Christmas, so I got to spend some time with him and rescue him from being stranded like many other airline passengers from Calgary there. So that was nice prior to Christmas, bringing him home. As for actual council business, I had the luxury of being able to spend some time with my council colleagues during the New Year's Eve event at the Ernie Radburn Pavilion. We handed out a bunch of cake, we cut it, we made a mess. That's what we're usually good at these New Year's functions. If it's not hot chocolate, it's cake and icing all over the floor. But we did good. People were very happy. We had a good time, and it was a glorious night. The only other thing that I want to actually mention is I think I got the best neighbors in the entire world because I got like 10 different gifts and my favorite sweater like redarned, and I got patches put on it, a little bunny thing, all just out of the kindness of my neighbors' hearts. So, you know, to all those fine young, well, older ladies, they're all senior citizens, but to all you fabulous ladies out there, thank you very much for being such wonderful neighbors, such caring people in our community, and the reason why people keep migrating to the city. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Bressie.
For the record, Councillor Thiessen, I knew she was coming to me next, and I knew it was going to be you, then me. She's getting predictable. She went this way last time, so now she's going that way. Anyways, the couple things I've got is I don't think we had a council meeting since it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Bosch, but Councillor Bosch and I got to attend the orientation for the new Youth Advisory Council. So it was great seeing some returning faces and some brand new faces, and I think it's going to be a good group. And I know that there's hopes in that group to be a lot more active than it has been in the past. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what those young leaders will do for our community, how they'll inform our work. Two other things I got is, as Deputy Mayor, I got to bring greetings to the Kananaskis Nordic Spa Alberta Masters Championship tournament, which was held here. It had 16 teams from across the province and the Alberta corner of northern BC, and competing to see who will represent our province later this year. And I believe New Brunswick is where the championship is. And the dinner was fantastic. And something that they did was they spent a lot of time highlighting to the attendees from across the province how fantastic Grande Prairie has been to the curling club and how great we are when it comes to being an organization that hosts sports. So it was really great for us to get that kind of shout out for them. And something that they gave to me to pass on to council, so I'll give it to Mayor Clayton to do with as she sees fit. We got this little memento from them, and it's got a little writing in it that I'll read to council. It says, "To the City of Grande Prairie, its mayor, council, and administration for decades of dedication to ensuring our facility is leading edge in Alberta and Canada. We are fully committed to our partnership in pursuit of your mission for Grande Prairie to enhance our reputation as one of the most progressive cities in hosting major sporting events. Our center recognizes and thanks you for decades of dedicated support for curling and our wonderful facility. From the Grande Prairie Curling Club." So, so yeah, that was great to get to receive on behalf of Mayor Clayton and Council. And the last thing I'll do is, I don't usually bring what I hear or see on social media to council for obvious reasons, but I did come across a social media post a little bit ago that got a huge amount of likes and loves, and I just thought it was fun to share. And it's by a gentleman who says, "I want to thank the initiative of the City of Grande Prairie that they've helped me with 3 months of free bus transit pass as I am a newcomer to this country. I want to thank all in the office, the drivers, and all the support team. You guys were really helpful in settling me in. It was great to see that post. It was great to see the traction it got on social media. And just, it's fun when you get to do something at council that seems small. I think that was a really quick, really obvious conversation for us to have, but it's always fun when you run into somebody saying that it made a big difference. And I always appreciate residents sharing the good on social media, especially when they're such brand new residents. So I want to share that with council.
Councillor Blackmore.
Perfect, finally. I have really nothing to report other than a revolving door at our house with relatives and friends coming and going. We really enjoyed our time with them, and I'm going to exit the room right now to take my grandson back to the airport because he's the straggler.
Thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to bring some awareness to the upcoming Try It Day. So that is on January 21st. I sit on the Sport Connection board, so I better do my job here and let people know that, you know, the youth have this great opportunity to try a sport that they've never tried, or an activity that perhaps they've never tried, or tried once or twice and just not sure they have the feel for it. Just connect with the Sport Connection and enroll your kids in and have them try something new and unique for potentially what they might love to do in the future. I attended the Storm board meeting as a new member on their board, and I'd like to welcome on behalf of our council Nicole Menzies as the new executive director for the Storm. So she will be great for this organization, and I look forward to getting to know her. I was lucky enough to, and some of our other council members, lucky enough to check out the new Dream Home. So if you're around and want something beautiful to go look at and a great cause to, you know, give some money to, that would be a perfect event to go to. We already discussed the Regional Rec Committee and at length, quite honestly, and I hope that all these soccer organizations really do see that, you know, this is important to us. We did spend a great deal of time on it tonight, and it's not something that we take lightly or want to, you know, pitch to the side. As a council, many of us went to the Airport Commission presentation for the final draft of the 20-year master plan. I love airports, love everything about it. That is my total wheelhouse. I could spend all day there. So that exciting things that perhaps will come out of this master plan for us. Growth is where we need to, you know, focus, and in saying that, our airport needs to grow with us. Again, the Youth Advisory Council that Councillor Bressie and I went to, and then the Ukrainian Christmas Rotary dinner that all the Rotary clubs put on, invited the new Ukrainian community members that we have. It was a great dinner, great for, you know, people getting together, and all on Ukrainian Christmas Eve. So Mayor Clayton and I both have some Ukrainian heritage, so we did appreciate that even more, just based on that. And again, all the Christmas get-togethers with, whether it was committees, boards, some of our political leaders, it was a busy month. And finally, my favorite, spending time with my family and friends.
Thanks for that. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. And it was a very good time off, great time to reflect, great time to share with your family. And I just enjoyed that time off. And I also went to the Dream Home. Wonderful job on there. The New Year's Eve, handing out the cake to people. They were so happy to do that. And there were so many functions going on. And of course, the Ukrainian Christmas was pretty awesome. And that's my report.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Connor. I don't have a lot to add that wasn't already mentioned. I do, however, want to remind people that this weekend is the Grand North Winterfest. I'm super excited about it. It starts Friday, goes till Sunday. There is many free activities. I'm going to read the list here so I don't miss any. Outdoor skating, there is horse and wagon rides and snowshoeing, and there's maple taffy with the SFA. There's the Aquaterra ice slide, the Fletcher Mudrick snow art, the official snow maze, the office snow maze rather, the Green Path Energy croquet curl rink. If you haven't croquet curled before, you got to get out there this weekend and try it. There is live DJs every day, as well. The as I mentioned, the Green Path Energy skating oval. There is concerts. There's the Storm play Friday night, so get out, cheer for the Storm. It's their first game back with our new score clock, which is extremely exciting. So you'll get replays, and it'll be like you're at a really big, cool hockey game. And then Saturday night in the Bowes Garden, we have 5440 is the headliner with other opening acts. So it's a great weekend. The weather looks great. We've been, knock on wood, lucky 2 years in a row. Who said we live in a winter city, right? When it's only -10. But anyways, I encourage people to get out there, enjoy it. It's going to be a great weekend. People have put a lot of effort and into this event, and I know administration's been working hard, as well as the folks at the Bonnets Energy Center. So come downtown, enjoy the event, come over to the Montrose Cultural Center, and we all hope to see you there. And that is my report. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks, everyone.